All right. So, it's been asked. So we're going to try it. We're doing a Dumesh from start to finish. The only thing I've done is cut a piece of 31 gauge, A1 Canthal. We're now securing it. Probably gonna have to mute that so nobody freaks out. Little quick straightening action. All right, so we've got our A1 core. Reason being is we are doing 10 cores and need all the resistance we can get. So there's that. Struggling for some reason to locate. There it is. It's almost gone. Okay. Let's turn that volume off on that. There we go. All right. So hopefully we can see something here. It's kind of difficult to set up, period. Going to be using 36 gauge kidney puncher and 80 for the stagger fuse. I normally use Coil Society for my dual core staggers, but on the Dumesh, kidney puncher is slightly softer than 80. So I can use 36 and make them as wide as possible. Okay, got our button, our hoodie lock with our loop. Found a space. Same principles with everything that you would be put in place for any type of staggered build. The only reason I'm not really showing much detail on that, period, is chances are if you are wanting to attempt a 10 core, you are not coming from building a fused Clapton. Okay. just made it with that spool. That's good. So when I do it, I lay out a 33-inch shot of wire. And the reason being is I'm going to cut this into 10 3-inch sections. And then I will have a little leftover on the end, just simply to terminate back on my swivel. Not that I put a lot of tension on it, but it's nice just so that the core has a home somewhere. Simply not going to be able to grab that. Getting new spools started. Okay. Alright, so that's set. Definitely going to want a jeweler's vise. By definitely, I mean don't bother trying this without one. When cutting these, you want to make sure you're using something extremely sharp. Scissors. And use scissors that are sharp. Otherwise, you will have issues. They don't need to be anything crazy. Some people go out and buy titanium fiskars that are like 25 bucks. Seriously, this is Westcott from Walmart. They're $1.98, and I've used them for over a year. Just putting that out there. So, what I do is I actually put a Ziploc bag under my rail, and then I slide my material under that. And the reason being is it keeps it from flying all over the place. Obviously, it can get lost very easily because we're only cutting little 2-inch sections. If you're cutting a 12-inch section, well, you don't have to worry about it flying around. 2-inch, they like the boogie, so, or 3-inch in this case. So 32 to 29. Got a couple trying to run away here. Stop it. Play nice. Four. Five. Six. Seven. Eight. Nine. And our last one is already obviously to length. So get that out of the way. Now you got 10 cores here, and what I try and do is put our terminating core in the center. Just so it kind of keeps everything in a line. Otherwise you end up with like this weird wobble where it's all rolling. So I try and keep that one in the middle. Stack them up as best you can. Now I will say, when you terminate this into the jeweler's vise, you want to go a little deeper than you normally would anyways, and you also want to lock it in super duper tight. because there's so many individual strands to try and secure that you can oftentimes inadvertently pull out your center or come close to it. And I normally do a little pull check to make sure that it's good, we're secure, we're not going to go anywhere. Wow. That took a bit longer than it should have. Like I said, not a whole lot of tension on the swivel, as you can see. It's just there to keep everything in line. From this point, I'm just going to kind of look down the barrel of the shot, make sure that everything's kind of feng shui and in the right orientation. Not too far out of whack. Actually going to slide this over to a little bit more comfortable position, which means I'll slide this over to a little bit more comfortable position. Okay. So, prepare to be bored. When fusing this is how I fuse it. All by hand. The tension on the spool, I actually put a decent amount of tension on it to make sure that everything lays perfectly flat, which is why I can only do about 4 or 5 rotations before I get a pinch. Part of that is also due to the fact that we're using 36 gauge. You have a lot more forgiveness with higher gauge, but you lose the width of the build. And for this, you need that. It needs to be wide, or as wide as possible, so that, you know, it replaces mesh and runs the way it should run. Actually might change the position of this to a little bit more favorable for me. So we're going to move this over here, move that over there, put that right there. I will say that this whole process is temperamental. Some days are great days, some days are not. Just kind of accepting that sometimes this just simply is not going to go your way. Reset, reconfigure, start over. I feel that if I used a drill still, that I probably could get away with doing, you know, little bumps on a drill because you have that infinite speed control, where with my lathe it's so very sensitive that I don't dare completely annihilate an entire build for the sake of trying to fine-tune that dial to come in nice and slow like it needs to. I've tried it before. We won't talk about that. You'll notice too as I'm going along here that I will sometimes flick my wrist a little bit, and that's just to get the material to lock in the way it needs to. Because you're doing it by hand, you can see everything and how your alignment is, where your wire needs to go, and you have all the control in the world doing it like this. So long as your spacing is correct, it can lead to success. It still doesn't negate the fact that this takes a very, very long time, a high level of accuracy for spacing, and boatloads of patience. I don't know if you can hear that twang. That twang is when it locks in where I need it to. A little adjustment here. Well, that didn't work as planned. What if we take it up a notch? How's that looking? That's looking good. Okay.
suppose I should clarify, when I say a good amount of tension in my hand, it's not really like I'm squeezing the spool, but I can feel the drag passing between my fingers, if that makes sense. Kind of getting a little lost here. Trying to give myself a little room to work. What likes to happen too is that you're pinching all the material, so you're steadily loosening up that core a little bit, and what can happen is your center can pull anyways, so then you have to sit there and wiggle with it, fight with it, wiggle with it, fight with it. And then re-terminate. Sit back up. Have a go again. You can usually tell too when your termination core starts to slip a little bit. You end up with all this slack that doesn't make sense, and that's why you're just losing your core just a little by little by little. It's a never-ending cat and mouse game. We're past the halfway point. It's a big plus. Hopefully, for anybody that sits through and watches this whole thing, helps cast a light really on just how much goes into this. A little tiny build. It's something I offer. I don't know of anybody else that does. It's certainly awesome as a replacement for mesh. And I feel that my pricing is quite fair in consideration for the fact that we could have did a whole bunch of stuff in the time it takes to do this. But, you know, now you have an actual coil in replacement of mesh that can be dry fired, it can be cleaned, it can be rewicked and used for many